counting her misdemeanors with her fingers. You went looking for revenge, and you found the doctor. You gave him the list of working girls along with enough money and food so he could stay underground. Then you gave him free rein with no compassion for his victims, offering him your father's protection. Dr. Tanner was still carrying enough anger to undertake your wishes, even if he did decide to use his own turn of hand. After you planted the evidence, you tipped off the police as an anonymous source. Leona fell silent, but she did not need to speak. Guilt was etched all over her face. It was you who took Nathan's watch, wasn't it? Jealous, because you saw our names engraved on the back. Then you gave it to the doctor, so he could plant it at the leisure centre. Another damning clue. Nathan shook his head in disbelief. He would never hit a woman, but he had a right to be angry, and owned a temper that could not always be controlled. "You fucking bitch!" He spat the words. "You fucking psycho bitch! I should have you killed for this." "Not on my watch," Ruby said, coming between them. "This ends today." "I didn't mean for him to kill all those people," Leona said, her voice trembling. "Dr. Tanner came to my dad for help after he strangled that girl in the park. Dad owed him a favour and promised he'd make it all go away." "And that's when an idea hatched in your head," Ruby said, as things became clear. So Danny Smedley had been telling the truth. Ray Delaney had got to him and persuaded him to confess to Lisa's murder. Her attention returned to Leona, her discomfort evident as she confessed. "After he left, I followed him home." Leona's eyes flicked to Nathan and back to the floor. It was doubtful she would have been so truthful had Ruby not been there to protect her. "I gave him the list of women so he could pick just one. Later, I planted the evidence under Nathan's bed when he was visiting our house. I wasn't to know the doctor would kill them all. And Nicky, he was just a kid. I told him he went too far." "And what about Ash Baker?" Ruby said, fighting the urge to smack Leona in the face herself. "That wasn't my fault." Leona's chin jutted in defiance, but she could not hide the pain. She still cared for Nathan, and it hurt her to be spoken to with such harshness by the man she once wanted to marry. As Nathan's hand slid around Ruby's waist, Leona's eyes burned with a look of jealousy and hatred, a cocktail inflamed by desire. But Ruby was more than ready to take her on, and she had the law on her side. "Does your father know?" Ruby said, her words cold. "No, and he's not going to. I'm not admitting to anything." Leona stared at them with contempt. "All that time I thought you loved me, and you were just stringing me along. I don't ever want to see either of you again." "That suits me fine," Nathan said, anger simmering beneath his words. He pointed to Ruby. "This is the woman I love. You're just a stupid kid playing at being a grown-up. If I ever see you around Ruby or me again—" "You won't," Leona said, tears filling her eyes as she made for the door. Emotional manipulation was a tool Nathan would use to his advantage when physical violence was off the agenda. Guilt speared through Ruby. She gained no satisfaction from seeing another woman humiliated in this way. She squared her shoulders. She had to get the final word in to ensure that it ended here. "I've got enough evidence to send you down for conspiracy to commit murder," she said. "If anything comes from this, and I mean anything, I won't hesitate to arrest you. Do I make myself clear?" "More than clear," Leona said, her voice breaking as she opened the door. She paused as she twisted the handle, tears falling down her face. "I went too far. I'm sorry." Chapter 71. 1 week later. "Did you think it was that easy?" Lenny said. "You thought you were going to ride off into the sunset just like that?" "What do you want, Lenny?" Ruby said, stepping back as she allowed him inside. She did not want to spend any more time in her old flat than she had to, and, gathering up the last of her things, she was just about ready to leave. "I heard you're moving in with my brother. Setting up home, are we?" "You heard wrong. Now if you'll get out of my way, I've got things to do." Lenny blew out his cheeks and shoved his hands deep into his coat pockets. He was suited up today, somewhat overdressed for a visit to her old address. "You can't leave until you settle your debts." "I'm paid up until the end of the month." Lenny smirked. "I'm not talking about the rent. Did you think I was giving you Mandy's address out of the kindness of my heart?" he tutted. "You should know by now that my favours don't come for free." Ruby frowned, her voice rising an octave. "I helped you. I put my neck on the line to put Nathan in the clear." "Not true. He was already in the clear before I gave you Mandy's address. Not that you had the courtesy to update me. Oh, come on. Did you really think I didn't know about that?" Ruby frowned, her heart plummeting in her chest. To be indebted to Lenny Crosby was not a good situation to be in. "You never said—" "I didn't need to. You know the code of practice. Did you think you were exempt?" "I was clearing up your mess. You started all this by advising him to throw acid in Tanner's face." "Such slander. I don't think Nathan would like to hear you talk about the family like that, do you?" "Whatever. Tanner's on remand in prison. It's over." "He's in the morgue," Lenny said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Ruby picked up her coat from the back of her chair and shrugged it on. Every second in this flat was tainted. She wanted to move on, but Lenny would not let her go. "What are you talking about?" "Haven't you heard? He hung himself in his cell about—" He pulled back his shirt sleeve and checked his designer watch. "Oh, about 10 minutes ago. Nasty business, that. Still, as you say, it's over now. He won't be troubling us again, and you don't have to worry about any awkward questions in court." Silence fell between them as the implication of his words became clear. He leant against the chair, blocking her movement. "Do you still have it?" "Have what?" Ruby said, her blood running cold. "The shooter." She shook her head. She had taken Downes's advice and disposed of the gun the next day. Lenny gave a slow nod, making it clear he was enjoying every second of this game of cat and mouse. "So, about this debt. I'm just kidding. You did a good job." His face broke into a vicious smile. "Don't want to spoil the housewarming now, do I? How's your mum, by the way?" "She's fine." Ruby swallowed. "Oh, good. Sorry I haven't been in to visit. I don't like those places. Care homes, prisons. They're pretty much the same to me. Know what I mean?" Ruby nodded. She knew exactly what he meant. If he could get to Dr. Tanner in prison, then he could get to her mother just as easily. He was putting on the squeeze so he could use her in the future. He could try all he wanted. Helping Nathan was a one-off. She wasn't for sale. "Great. Well, enjoy the move." The words trailed behind him as he walked away. Ruby closed the door behind him, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the lock. She did not need to check with the prison to see what fate had befallen the doctor. Tanner was the last person she was worried about. Her thoughts were focused on the veiled threats made against her mother. She should have known that Lenny would try to gain control now that her relationship with Nathan was restored. They had a future together. She would make it work. As she gathered up the last of her belongings, she decided on one thing. She would not allow Lenny's interference to blight her relationship with Nathan. Whatever came her way, she would sort it out on her own. This has been an Audible Studios production of Sleep Tight by Caroline Mitchell, read by Emma Newman. Copyright by Caroline Mitchell, 2017. Production copyright 2017 by Audible Limited. Audible Studios is a division of Audible Limited.
Audible hopes you've enjoyed this program.